Craig Lentz. According to Mary Beck, the lobbyist who wrote this bill was written specifically to address me and my family. I'm the product of what they're talking about. I'm somebody that went through how putative fathers are treated. The mother of my child was coerced into signing away her parental rights. That was 7 years ago now. I was on the birth certificate. I followed state law. That's been confirmed by the Supreme Court. And it took 6 years, and I got custody of my child back. During that time, Chris Kelly is here, and he's publicly slandering me to Missouri Net and several publications, saying that I waited over a year to act. That's completely untrue. The Missouri Supreme Court didn't go out of its mind here. It followed the law. We have a good Supreme Court, and the idea that they would have given me my child back if I'd waited a year to even file anything is completely untrue in their opinion. He could have Googled that opinion. It's online. But he doesn't obviously Google things and find out the facts of things. He just makes slanderous statements to news publications. And it seems like when it comes to parents, they're supposed to Google it. A state representative shouldn't Google it and find things out. He doesn't need to stop hatefully slandering my family. But, private citizens are supposed to be held at that standard. This is an anti-family bill. It's going to prevent mothers from identifying who the father of the child is on the birth certificate. It would revoke a birth certificate right now. I wanted to get on the birth certificate. When my son was born, I wanted a DNA test. And then I found out that some people had coerced the mother of my child, and they told me that we're going to adopt your child whether you like it or not. I consulted an attorney, and he said, you're going to have to sign the affidavit to get yourself on the birth certificate. And so he said, you're going to have the mother sign that indeed you're the father. And so I did, and I got myself on the birth certificate. And the Supreme Court of Missouri said that that was legal and what you're supposed to do. This law would make it to where any birth certificate that was gotten in this way could be revoked. And so our birth certificate, I guess, could be revoked, even though it shouldn't be that any law is retroactive. It would seem it would give them an opportunity to do that, and it would give these lobbyists the opportunity to play Supreme Court. They don't like, we have a check and balance system in this country. The legislature makes the laws, the governor signs it, that's the executive branch, and then the judicial branch, determines whether they're constitutional or not and how they should be interpreted. But these lobbyists do not like the way that the judicial branch interpreted this, and so they want and attempted a rewrite, and that's what they're trying to do now. This is going to create unconstitutional penalties for families that accept any kind of help. The man's going to lose his rights automatically. And it's also going to create a requirement for men to provide visitation and support for a child that's in the womb. I don't know how that would even be possible. How are you going to prenatally visit with a child? Are you going to talk to the woman's stomach? And it was impossible, the standard. This took me 7 years and over $1 million. I had to prove it all. And this would create a standard now. I'm sure that they didn't ever expect that I would be able to prove that I cared for my child. But I was able to legally. And so now they want to create a standard by which you would never be able to prove it. If the child isn't even born yet, how would you prove that? And this is a state where we hold men 100% responsible for the children that they father inside and outside of marriage. If I had run the other way and the mother wanted child support, they would have filed with the court, the sheriff would have hunted me down, I would have been forced to take a DNA test, and I would have been stuck with child support. And if I didn't pay that, I would go to the state penitentiary. We hold men 100% responsible in this state, yet they have absolutely no rights. It's a condition of apartheid. What's best for children is to be with their biological parents. The putative father registry is not to serve as a way that we can make it impossible for natural parents to parent their own children. And that's what this bill would do.
Tell you what, we've got a few more minutes for your testimony. Why don't we find out if there are questions for you so you can address some questions. That'd be all right?
Okay.
Questions of the third row. So what is it that you felt you needed at the time for you to be able to
guess, be engaged in the decision. I mean, clearly in circumstances where the father has told the mother that she needs to have an abortion, or if the gentleman that testified earlier said there was repeated attempted contact with the father and he never responded, some of those situations are a little different than I feel what happens to be written in the bill. What do you, I mean, there are some circumstances where I do feel as if consent by the father doesn't necessarily need to be given. So what is your suggestion, or how would you make this bill better? Very briefly.
Well, I think what this is, the way that the law is already written, a prophecy church was able to coerce the mother of my child, get her to sign away her rights at their kitchen table, which they took into court. She was under duress. And then the people that were part of this cult told me, we're going to take your kid. There's been a prophecy given, and there's nothing you can do about it. I think that what these people are saying, well, the father was right up against the deadline and all this other stuff. Basically what they're getting into is that they don't think that men that are unmarried ought to have their constitutional rights like everyone else. Indeed, there have been evil people from the beginning of the United States that have tried to argue that certain people shouldn't have constitutional rights.
So really quickly, so you're saying that you wish you had been notified that this was taking place, and for you to have been able to respond, and if not respond,
I don't think that there ought to be a putative father registry. If we're going to hold, we know who these kids belong to by DNA. We hold men responsible by DNA. I think the putative father registry is unconstitutional. If we're going to hold men responsible by DNA, they have absolutely no rights. I definitely don't think it should be made harder for the putative father registry.
Other questions or witness? I have a question. You referenced a person by the name of Mary Beck. Is she a department employee or who is that?
No, she's a lobbyist. She's a professor at the University of Missouri, but she wrote this bill and she wrote several others. She wrote the bill that took my son away, and she, along with Chris Kelly, are talking to Missouri Net and saying, well, men are on notice the minute that sex occurs, and of course that seems unrealistic also. Really, are we going to have about 5 million men go and register down at the Department of Health and Senior Services every time they have sex? That's what they're saying, but of course we know that would bust the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services. But what this guy just got up and testified is, well, they've gotten every opportunity. Well, they haven't. Mary Beck is a law professor at the University of Missouri, and she's also working as a lobbyist, trying to go around the law itself, although she teaches law. And before she was an attorney, she was also a midwife nurse. So she knows how vulnerable women are right after they give birth.
Okay, well, I have another question for you. You said that there was a lawsuit having to do with the paternity issue with your child.
Sure.
In your opinion, does this bill do anything to impact your particular situation or just situations like yours in the future?
It would do both. If they can revoke my son's birth certificate, and that went to the Supreme Court, it went to the appeals court twice, the lawsuit is over, it's been decided. If they could then go ahead and revoke my son's birth certificate, and it would cause him more legal problems. One of the things that happened, the people that tried to adopt my child published this blog where they said they laughed about being able to do it, saying they didn't think they'd get the baby, but better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. It certainly wasn't better for my kid, and that they wanted to have me killed. And people said, well, you're just crazy. Well, then I get into this crazy car wreck that has crippled me. It's mysterious. And then we find out afterwards that they've had the birth certificate changed and the Social Security card changed while I was in the hospital without ever having an adoption. How did that happen? But my child's going to have identity problems, identity theft problems. The Department of Social Services, the federal department, and also the State Department has said, because there's been now 4 different birth certificates, they changed it. They changed it under 2 names, and now it's back to normal. And now this is a bill that would allow my child's birth certificate to be changed yet again.
Okay, I got what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You think it's going to impact you in the future? Any other questions of this witness? And thank you for your testimony. I appreciate it very much.
Can I say one more thing? I hope that if this is passed, that at least there is something in it. I hope it's not passed, but at least there's something in it that says this cannot retroactively apply to anyone. Thank you.
Other witnesses in opposition to the bill?
My name is Ibbaanika, and I'm the first mother from the Lentz case, and I appreciate the opportunity, this assembly finally giving me an opportunity to say to Mary Beck and Chris Kelly that I'm the woman you're trying to ruin. I'm not some name on a paper or a set of initials. I'm a real woman, and these laws have caused me real pain and suffering. I'm not just some abstract idea in your law papers. In fact, you may be a former judge, Mary Beck may be a law professor, but it is I who am the expert on the Lentz case. To me, it's not just some case. I lived it. It was my life for 7 years. If either of you or any other member of the adoption lobby that you so openly admitted to CBS St. Louis was behind this law, think that you are experts, I have a couple of questions for you. Were you there when I realized that everything that the Taylors, the people who took my son, said was a lie, and that I had made the worst mistake of my life, trusting them? Were you there the first time, after weeks of anticipation, the Taylors told me I couldn't ever have another visit with my son because my son's father had brought a case, though they had committed to open adoption? Were you there when I saw my son's face and the face of every child I saw, and when I would smell the few things that I had of his and cry? Were you there when my son's father was dying in the ICU after a suspicious car wreck, and when all I wanted to do was hold his hand and tell him I loved him, but I had to instead talk with lawyers because we were both still in the middle of the fight for our son, and I knew he wouldn't want to wake up, if he ever did, to the terrible news that our case went into default and we lost our child? No, you weren't there, and I hope this assembly will listen to me rather than a lobby. And if it seems like I'm angry or traumatized or that I'm taking this very personally, well, that is what 7 years of a ruined life will do to a person. And when two people openly admit that the bill is written in a way that would make it so that my own son's birth certificate could be revoked, and could give the people who terrorize my family an opportunity to begin another lawsuit, I take that very personally. And when this man, Chris Kelly, tells a bold-faced lie to Missouri Net and it's a published slander against my family to promote the bill, I take it personally too. I want to set the record straight. Contrary to what you said, Chris Kelly, but it was published in Missouri Net.
Hold on for just 1 second. We on the committee understand that this is horribly, personal to you. But if you could address your comments concerning the sponsor or Mary Beck or anything to people who are in the hallway and to Missouri Net and the press, we need to hear about this bill and your problems that you have with the bill, because we would like to get the bill right. And anything that you had to say to Representative Kelly or anybody else, I fully respect your right to say that. But let's talk about the bill here in the committee, if you could, please.
Well, I can say it to you, and it's basically the way that this bill has been promoted. Even when I was walking in here, was that Chris Kelly said that birth parents have found an opportunity to make money off of this. I just wanted to say, if that swayed anyone about this bill, that's absolutely untrue in our case, that no one made money except for attorneys. And it's possibly that people who tried to adopt my son could have made money because of federal tax things that were just passed. But we made no money. We lost money. I'm still in debt because of it, and Craig spent over $1 million. So I feel like if these things were put forward to convince people that this was a good bill, I wanted to say, to address him or whoever, that stuff isn't true. And that, of course, Craig didn't, like he said before, didn't wait a year before he tried to file something to get custody. It was less than 2 weeks after the people who had my son had custody of him that he actually filed in court. And I really just want to say that, people like Mary Beck, people who write these kind of laws, lobbies, they don't represent me. I'm the mother in this specific case. And these laws like this don't benefit me. This lawsuit was the worst thing for my son and for me. It ruined my life. And I just want to tell people that, to put more adversarial opportunities in situations between unmarried parents is not something that's good for children. These people are hiding behind children, saying this is their best interest. But it wasn't in their best interest to let people coerce you And I think that there will be more cases like this if this bill is passed. I feel that they put opportunities to seize your rights, as in all these different requirements in the law, as ways to say that they're protecting people's rights, but what they're really doing is setting a trap for people who a lot of whom don't have enough money to get lawyers, who don't have enough money to represent themselves in court, and who could never prove any of their support. And one thing I talked to a House representative about once was that it's unprecedented that support would be required prenatally from any parent. And they don't require that of unmarried parents or mothers. They don't even require that of people who have been accused of abuse. This is holding men who just happen to have the misfortune of someone wanting to adopt their child and them being unmarried to a higher standard than people who have been accused of abuse. It's unconstitutional. It violates equal protection.
Okay, so let's see if there's any questions for you. Any questions in this witness? Seeing none. I appreciate your testimony. I understand it's very personal to you because you are the person involved in the lawsuit. But we understand what you're saying, and we'll give it every consideration. Thank you very much for being here today.
No, I live in Raytown, Missouri.
Raytown, that's right, you said Raytown. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Other witnesses in opposition? Don't be shy because we're getting ready to close it out. Okay. Tell us who you are, and don't forget to fill out a witness form. I want to caution everybody, please fill out a witness form.
Well, how to follow up after testimony like that. My name is Michael Russo. I am the state coordinator for a nonprofit organization called Fathers for Justice. That's Fathers, the number 4, and Justice. I know that I've spoken with at least Senator Cunningham before about different family law type subjects. Adoption not being one of the ones that I'm most familiar with, but have been getting more familiar with since I've met up with Craig and Ibbaanika. To me, when I read this bill, it showed to me a general gender bias out now. Where are we going with this? We're going to make Dad jump through these hoops. We're going to make Dad keep a journal. That's the only way that I can figure that they've said in the bill that you must prove that you have done X, Y, and Z. You have prenatal child support. The medical bills that you provided medical care. It all just seems surreal and insane to me that we're going to go to this level, and we're going to, it's already hard enough. This was no small feat for these people to, get their rights to their son. Craig in particular. This was no small feat. We're talking about 3 favorable decisions by the Missouri Supreme Court. Millions of dollars? Are you kidding me? Do we have to go there? Does it have to be that to that extreme? I want to try and collect myself a little bit here because I do get upset. I think it's suffice to say that this is at the best unconstitutional and at the worst probably criminal to actually have this type of gender bias. It's civil rights, it's constitutional rights, and the bottom line here is you can't do it. If you still feel that we must have something in place, if that's where we're going with this, I say let's put it to a vote. Let's put it to a vote of the people. What do the people want to do? The gentleman who had problems with his adoption, that's a serious issue. There's no doubt. But I seriously doubt that more legislation, especially of this type, is going to help in any situation.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Are there questions of this witness? Thank you, Marilyn. We appreciate you coming here. You did have one question.
Yes, there's a picture that was put on the draft. I'd like to see it.
Sure.
My name is Leanne.
Other questions of this witness? Seeing none, thank you for coming down for your testimony. Next witness in opposition, please.
My name is Reverend Matt Jackson. I'm the pastor of Blue Ridge Presbyterian Church in Raytown, the pastor of Craig and Ebby and their son Noah. The picture that's before you is the picture that's in our church directory. I'm here to say two things. The first is that this bill seems to me to be an assault on families, an assault on fathers. Secondly, I'm here because I've spent, I can't tell you how many times in the hospital when Craig was recovering from this car accident where a car came across 350 highway and hit him head on. He shouldn't have survived. And I witnessed time and again a man who was literally fighting for his life and from the hospital bed was also fighting for his son. So I see lots of claims that almost characterizing Craig as like he's a deadbeat dad. And it's just so beyond outrageous, I can't stand it. So I'm concerned that this bill further undermines the ability of natural fathers to stand up, care for their own children. And I think that should be the default, that we support natural parents in supporting them and raising their children. Thanks very much.
Thank you for coming down from fairly long distance to testify. I appreciate that. Questions of this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony and for your witness after that to us. Other witnesses in opposition? Going forward. After this gentleman, are there other witnesses in opposition? Raise your hand if you're out there. Okay. As far as we know, then you are the last person in opposition. Welcome.
Just very briefly, I'm Robert Haight. I've been to this committee before. I am an adoptee. I am one who has been trying to get my original birth certificate for many, many years. I know Senator Lansing has worked with us before. Anytime something that comes up with adoption, I look at that very carefully. And although the thing is, adoption is a difficult subject, it's never as simple as the lobbyists for the pro-life organizations seem to think that it's a choice between adoption and abortion, and that's not how that's not how it works. I know many, many birth parents, and every case is unique. I just would urge the committee to be very, very careful about this. May seem like well-intentioned legislations, but we all know that every year the legislature, if there's only one law they pass, it's the law of unintended consequences, and I suspect that this law, as written right now, would lead to probably a lot more litigation. And it's not going to clarify things, I'm afraid. We all know that sometimes the legislature writes laws intending to clarify things, and it only turns into even more issues. The only comment, I would like to see this law not pass.
Thank you very much. Wait a minute. There may be some questions for you. Questions of this witness?